Hello there, I'm John Zimmerman with Table Rock Trout Unlimited. Today we're doing a 3-for-1 special on 3 flies that I would absolutely not think about going to the river or creek without. We're going to start with a fly that's gotten a lot of attention on the competition circuit. It's called the Sexy Walt. And then we're going to tie a Squirmie wormy, and we're going to finish out with another highly successful competition fly called a Frenchie. One of the great things about all 3 of these patterns is that they are very quick and very simple to tie. They require only a very few materials each, and because we're putting a tungsten bead on each of them, and each of them is a fairly svelte, thin diameter fly, they're going to go to the bottom pretty quickly. So let's get started. We're going to start with a Sexy Waltz, and for this we are going to use a highly fluorescent thread. One of the things that we want to happen when we tie this fly is that the thread color shows through after we have dubbed it. So that's a highly important part of this fly. Before we start, I'm going to add a little bit of lead to this. Even though I've got a tungsten bead on it, I want this bug to go straight to the bottom. When I tie this fly for my own competition purposes, I tie it on a jig hook with a slotted bead, but for this today we're just going to do it on a regular grub hook and a size 12. This is .020 lead wire. I'm just going to put 7 or 8 turns of this on and then break it off and then jam it up here into the bead. That'll do you a couple things. Jamming it up there will help you kind of cement the bead in place, as well as help cement the lead in place. So the first thing, if you ever have a problem and you're tying in lead and the lead starts to spiral out on you, that's because you did not do a very good job damming it up in the front and the back. So if I were creating a piece of lead body in the middle, I would have put a dam on the front and back before I started trying to wrap over top. So you can see that did not go anywhere on me. That's the first thing you need to do when you're tying in lead, is to create a thread dam at the top of the fly and at the bottom of the fly where the lead is, and that lead's not going to go anywhere after that. So we're going to take this thread a pretty good ways back into the bend of the hook. Our ribbing is going to be silver metallic sulky. You cannot buy this stuff at the fly shop, as far as I know. I've never seen it in a fly shop. I buy it at the sewing store. So the Joann's definitely has it. AC Moore may have it, but I know Joann's has it because that's where I have bought it the last several years when I have needed to replace. And having the sulky in a variety of colors is great. So one of the wonderful things about the Sexy Waltz is you can tie it in a full spectrum of colors to imitate any color nymph that you've got going on in your watershed. Now, I normally do not wax my thread. I've tied so many flies over the years that I can dub straight on. But for this, I do want to wax this thread just a little bit because I want to create an illusion of some transparency with the dubbing material. So I do not want to spin this on really tightly, and waxing the thread here will help me achieve that effect of translucency. So even here you may be able to see that you can see the thread straight through in that lightly packed dubbing noodle there. We do not want to get this super packed, otherwise one of the great things about this fly will be disabled. And when it gets in the water column, we really want to be able to see through the thread a little bit, see through the dubbing right to the fluorescence of the body of this fly. It'll be really apparent to you when you get this fly wet. As you can see, I have tied this fly a number of times. Then we're just going to take the sulky and palmer it forward. I like more wraps than fewer wraps on this. When this fly gets wet in the water, the silver metallic sulky is just going to burn burn through, and it's going to be super visible in the water. And when the dubbing gets wet, especially after it's caught a couple fish and starts to flay out on you, it is going to show through, and that hot pink center there is really going to grab the fish attention. So now we're just going to do a couple turns on a whip finish. One more. Do not be afraid to try lots of different body material colors for this in either the dubbing or the thread. So I keep these in fluorescent chartreuse thread, in fluorescent orange thread, fluorescent red thread, also that you get a different color of the body material coming through. Deadly, deadly fly. Absolutely do not go to the river without some of these. The next fly we are going to do is the Squirmie Wormy that Dave Heiss out of Casters in Hickory made possible. I think Dave originally called it the Squirmito, but the popular name has become the Squirmie Wormy. We're going to tie that fly right now. You'll see that it is an incredibly easy fly to tie. There is only one little step that throws people off on it. Now, I have seen this fly tied a whole bunch of ways. I'm going to show you the way that I tie it, which is to wrap the material forward. I've seen it tied, and I want some of the material coming off both ends. So I have friends who tie this with the material only coming off the front of the fly, on material only coming off the back of the fly, but I tie it with the material coming off both ends, just the way that Dave originally did it. So for me to measure, I measure the Squirmie worm material with the crease of my index finger, the first crease on my index finger to the top, and then I pinch it, and that's how much I want for a tail. And this is the hardest part of learning to tie this fly for people. You want to set it just off the top and roll it onto the top, being careful not to put so much pressure on the thread that you cut through the material. And at this point, we're just going to take the rotary function of our vise and wrap this forward. And take a couple good wraps over top of this, because we want this to lay back as it goes backwards. So we want this to lay back. The headpiece to lay back. I don't like it coming off the top. I want it all to lay back. Now you could do a number of things right here. I tend to stop this here and tie the fly off in front of the bead. Now there are a lot of people, including me, who on most flies criticize that, because this little piece of thread right here, if a fish comes up and nicks that piece of thread with its teeth. Trout don't really have teeth, but with those appendages that act like teeth or feel like teeth if you get them stuck in your thumb, nick that with one of those teeth, this fly's going to come unraveled. However, in my experience with this fly, the worm material does not last much longer than the thread. So do yourself a big favor with this fly and always save the hook and the bead. Take a razor blade, cut the worm material off after it's been chewed up by some fish, cut the thread off, start over, and you can use it again. So this is the Squirmie Wormy, absolutely deadly fly. Bubblegum pink is a destroyer on wild fish, on delayed harvest fish, and fish that are in private trophy streams that get lots of pressure. I found that the earthworm brown and the bloodworm are a little bit more effective than the bubblegum pink, but it comes in a variety of colors. Bubblegum pink, bloodworm, earthworm brown, glow in the dark, purple, which is great. Purple is a great one. Orange, blue. I haven't had a lot of success on blue, but all the other colors have been absolutely dynamite. So that's the Squirmie Wormy, a fly you should definitely not go to the creek without. And the last of the super simple, easy to tie, quick ties that we're going to do today is an absolute favorite of mine, and it is called a Frenchie. One of the kids who won the World Championships a number of years ago absolutely wrecked everybody. left no room for competition. And everybody thought they were going to look at his box and see all these super realistic looking flies, and he fished with Frenchies. Super easy fly to tie, super quick fly to tie, and there's really nothing for the fish to be afraid of. I think a lot of times when we're tying flies, we tie flies that catch fishermen instead of tying flies that catch fish. And a lot of those flies just scare the crap out of fish. So this fly has enough attractant with not so much attractant that fish go, there's no way that's food. So we're going to tie this either. You can tie, the thread can be any number of colors as long as it's a bright color. You want the thread to be a bright color because we're going to put a hot spot right up here, and I always leave a little bit of a hot spot at the back too. So I'm doing it in pink today. I tie most of mine actually in orange. So I tie most of my Frenchies with orange thread. Pink is a wonderful color as well, and I think a lot of the original patterns of this fly were tied with pink. So we're going to tie in our pheasant tail, which is going to be our body, and then we're going to tie in some copper wire, which is going to help us with the ribbing of the fly, as well as adding some security to the pheasant tail in case a fish nicks it as we're fishing with it. So let's bring this copper wire back so it stays out of our way. And if you've got a rotary vise, you're just going to turn the vise. Do not cover up this little back part here. I want that hot spot in there. So that is a purposeful piece of thread that I am leaving in the back. And go ahead and wrap this all the way up to the top. You're going to cover this up with either some peacock curl or, like I'm going to do, ice stub. But as I've shown you a number of times, using what would otherwise be waste to help you build up a body saves you in material in other ways. So that piece of pheasant tail that I wrapped all the way to the top will save me a little extra pinch of dubbing as I make the collar for this fly. All I'm doing now is taking my copper wire forward, wrapping in the opposite direction that I wrapped the pheasant tail, a couple turns of it in front to secure it, and then just break that off. The small stuff is super easy to break off. Don't ruin your scissors on that. And then we're going to create a little base here for us to add our collar. I do this in purple, pink, peacock, blue, ice stub. If there's a collar color out there, I have it. In this, basically, I have an entire box full of Frenchies. We're going to do this with pink today. Fluorescent ice stub pink. And the end of this fly is a couple turn whip finish. The last time Taylor and I fished in the Rumble and the Rhododendron in Cherokee, we made it well into the final round, and we're only a couple of centimeters out from taking third place, and we fished Squirmies, Sexy Waltz, and Frenchies. And just knew that fish eat these bugs without question, and no sense trying to go through 8,000 different patterns in a day on the water when you know that fish eat these flies with abandon. So again, this is the Frenchie. This collar can be tied in a number of different colors. The thread can be a number of different colors as long as it's something bright that gets their attention. This is the Sexy Waltz. It's also got a pink hot spot. Green, fluorescent green, and fluorescent orange also make great bodies and underbody, or great underbody threads for this, and a great hot spot. And this is the indelible Squirmie Wormy that may catch more fish for me in a year than just about anything else. So add these flies to your repertoire of tying if they're not already in it, and you will not be disappointed. Hey, go catch a fish.